Hello and welcome to episode 49 of Novel Knits. My name is Danelle and this is my YouTube channel where I talk about what I'm knitting and what I'm reading. Thanks so much for joining me today. I'm always glad that you choose to spend your time with me. I do have a slightly different setup today. I got a new tripod and it holds my phone in portrait mode instead of landscape, which is what I normally record in. So things are gonna look different. It also has a ring light, which I'm hoping helps with the lighting, but I can't tell. So we'll see. This may or may not be a regular occurrence. We might go back to something else next time, but we're gonna try it out for today. You can find me on Instagram and Ravelry as Novel Knit Girl. And yeah, normally I have a lot of full show notes below the video. They're gonna be pretty bare bones today because I am going on spring break with my family and I'm gonna be gone for a week. And believe it or not, I'm kind of a procrastinator when it comes to packing. I leave it till the last second, so I have a lot to do tonight. So just getting this edited and hopefully up will be an accomplishment for me. Okay, so today to share with you, I have 4 finished objects, which is crazy, and one of them is huge, and I think I will deserve a round of applause on. I have 7 or 8 active whips and 5 new cast-ons, which is a ton. We're in the last couple weeks of the Cozy Winter Reads and Make Along, which is my book themed make along. So you either knit or crochet something book themed with book themed yarn or a book themed pattern and read a book and post it in the Ravelry group, which I will have linked below because that is kind of a bare bones thing I should include here. And it's not too late to join. I think I have the end date as March 31st, but I will not get on here again probably until the 1st or 2nd week in April. So it's open until I podcast again. And at that point I will draw the winners. So I hope that you will still join. It's never too late to join. And I also have a year-long make along going on right now called Shop Your Stash 2024, which is making, knitting, or crocheting anything using yarn from your stash that you've had prior to the start of this year. That goes all year long. It's not too late to join. You can join at any time. And I will be pulling the first quarter prizes for that make along next time I record as well. So next episode will be a fun prize themed episode, which is gonna be great. Okay, I think that's all I have for the admin stuff at the beginning. If I forgot anything, I'll try to sprinkle it in as we go. I'm wearing my halo today. This is one of my finished objects from this year so far. This is a pattern by Caitlin Hunter of Boyland Knitworks, and I used pineapple yarns in Lanny DK. The color was Cook Pine. She does not dye anymore, and this is the most beautiful green I've ever seen. I just love it so much. The pattern is lace and baubles. I'm not sure if this lighting is better or worse. I feel like I look like a ghost actually. So we'll see. We'll play around with it. Maybe if I turn it down. Oh, I think that's worse. Okay. So it's got this gorgeous lace and bauble yoke. Fits me really, really nicely. I alternated skeins. I'm in love with it. It's a wonderful finished object and I'm so happy to have it in my wardrobe. I haven't really worn it and I've really been reflecting on why I haven't been wearing a lot of my hand knit sweaters, and at the end of the day it came down to I work from home and I like to wear hooded sweatshirts and while I'm working, and also it has been a super mild winter where not only have I not really been wearing sweaters in general, but some of the heavier sweaters that I made last year, it's just not been cold enough. So it's been a really odd winter for us here in the Midwest, and I feel like it's been that way in most of the world that is experiencing winter right now as well. But anyway, this is my halo. I love it. It'll be a great sweater for next year, and I'm just so excited. I think it turned out wonderfully, and I do love this, this neckline. I will do it again. I have a few more V-necks in my queue for sure. All right, let's get to my finished objects. I have 2 pairs of socks. And if you follow me on Instagram, you've seen some of these for sure. First finished pair of socks were my 2023 Advent socks using an Advent skein from Woolens and Nosh. This was her 2023 Advent, and I love these so much. I did also get the coordinating mini skein for the cuffs and heels, and these turned out beautifully. They match perfectly. I'm very happy with how they turned out. I find that I love the way these socks wear. They're very thick for fingering weight, and when I'm knitting them, they feel very, very stiff. However, I like that feeling on my foot a lot. So I think this might be one of my favorite bases, to be perfectly honest. It's not my favorite base to knit, but in terms of wear, it is definitely one of my favorites. So here they are, and this is showing them terribly. And I adore them. They're gonna go in my box for next year, so they'll be a little gift to myself next winter. But I really, really, really enjoy these. I'm very happy with them. So that's finished object number 1. I'll stay on the socks right now. I'm pretty sure I had these cast on last time we spoke, but I finished the Nord socks, DK socks by Nancy Wheeler. She's Knit Sip Happy on everywhere. And she's a lovely podcaster and a lovely sock designer. And so this is a DK weight sock. And the yarn that I used is stash yarn. It's from Ex Libris Fibers, which is Rita, and she's a book-themed yarn dyer. So I guess technically these would work for my make-along, but I didn't really think about it for that. Nancy is hosting a make-along right now. It's a sock make-along. You do not have to knit a pair of Nancy socks, but you get a double entry if you do, and it's on Instagram. So if you look up Knit Sip Happy on Instagram, she's got a post that talks all about it. But I just really enjoyed these. I will say these are the first pair of socks from Nancy where I wasn't able to memorize the pattern. And I think it's a me thing, because like I could see what the stitches were doing when I looked at it, but sometimes if I just tried to go on my own, I would get lost in the pattern. But it was not that hard to just keep the pattern in front of me and just be like, okay, I'm on row 3. And it's only a 4-row repeat, so really I should have been able to. This is the first time I've done Nancy's rounded toe, which everybody raves about. And I will admit, it was very good. Normally I go rogue and do my own toe, but I followed her pattern exactly, mainly because these are DK weight socks and I don't make a lot of DK weight socks. So I wanted to make sure that I had the right rows for the toe decreases, like so that my sock didn't come out too long or too short. These are for me. And then it does have this awesome kind of texture on the back as well, which just keeps your interest. And these went so fast. So socks number 2 off the needles. And I'm really, really happy to have these in my sock drawer as well. So these will also go in my closet for next winter. Okay, and then I didn't even have this cast on last week, but I'm sort of doing an informal with myself challenge to find the perfect fitting hat. So I'm gonna be making a lot of hats this year to try to find the right one for my head. I think I have a slightly smaller head, so right now I'm in a ribbed hat phase where I'm seeing if the rib will like pull in a little bit more and fit my head better than some other hats that I have. While I don't love knitting ribbing, I think this is a worthwhile experiment for me. So I started with On the Sea Train. This is a free pattern by Espace Tricot, and I used La Bien Aimée Corey Worsted in Quartz Fume or Fume, I'm not sure. This was left over from my Stratified sweater out of the Worsted book, and it's got this interesting top. I've worn this a lot, so it's definitely not a fail. It's not something I would ever wear like this. And then I played around a little bit and I was like, no, this looks kind of garden gnome-y for me. But then if I pull it down, I can fold the brim, and I do wear it like a watch cap. This one I knit on a larger needle. I don't remember exactly which one. Yeah, I think it's nice. Definitely works for me. Oh, and I held it with mohair. I forgot about that. So I knit it on a larger needle with the Corey Worsted, and then I also held it with some leftover Tanis Fiber Arts mohair that I used for my rocket tee, which did not work for me and I donated. I think it was called like Space Gray or something with space, but it has a little bit of color in it, but it doesn't really come up at all. It reads very, very purpley gray to me. But it's on a bigger needle and I thought the mohair would make it feel warmer, but this is not a super warm hat. So while I like it, it'll have a for sure place in my, outdoor wardrobe. It's not as warm as I was hoping for. So I started another one and we'll see how, not the same pattern, but a different hat, and we'll see where that one takes us. Okay, then on to the big surprise here, you guys. I finished a blanket. I finished my Bits and Bobs blanket. Oh, and I'm showing the worst part of it right now. So I had finished this probably last fall, like the actual knitting of the blanket. And I had to apply this I-cord edging. I mean, I didn't have to, but it looks good, right? So this is, I'll kind of hold it up. This is the start. And this is all half fisherman's rib. I did not wash this or anything yet. And this is all just scraps and minis that I had in my house. I mean, I loved working on this. And the one thing I was gonna do today and get really good about doing that I have not done so far is tell you when I started and finished each project. So for the Advent socks, I started December 1st and finished March 10th. So not very fast, definitely not finished in the month they were intended for. The Nord DK socks, that G, oh my goodness, that J in there, because it's NJORD, really throws me, and I want to call it like, I want to like get in there with that one, but the Nord socks, I started on February 26th and finished on March 19th. And the On the Scene Train hat, this was super fast. I started this on March 5th and finished it on March 6th. So this I did in a day. The Bits and Bobs, I started this on August 6th of 2018 and I finished it on March 15th. And that was just applying. It took me 3 nights to apply the I-cord edging, which it does look extremely nice and finished. I did the corners well, if you look at the right side. And yeah, it's really nice. The one thing I did poorly, and this is on me, 100% this is on me. Kay had, this is a pattern by Kay Jones of the Bakery Bears, and she had a technique using a crochet hook to kind of basically do a provisional cast on for the I-cord, which I did not do. And I was like, it'll be fine. I've done this before. I didn't do a provisional cast on before. And so my join is extremely messy where it starts. And I feel like it's all I can see when I look at it. So I may go in with like a needle and thread and just see if I can pull that together a little bit to make it a little bit less of a eyesore. But overall, this is just for our family, probably even just for me. It's not big enough for a bed, but it'll be good to like sit outside by the fire or, just a lap blanket or something. But I just love it so much. And when I finished it, I was kind of sad because this is almost 6 years of knitting that just brought me so much comfort. I loved knitting on this so much. And I'm gonna start another one. I want to start another one right now, but I'm gonna wait because as we established last episode, I still have 6 other blankets on my needles. So I feel like maybe I need to finish one more before I cast on another Bits and Bobs. But for the next one, what I'm gonna do different is I'm going to cast on with an I-cord edge. I'm gonna make it a little bit bigger, not a ton, but a little bit wider. And I'm gonna add 3 stitches to either end for an I-cord border, because going back and picking up the I-cord edging really is not my favorite thing. And I'm almost positive I can make it work without that. But I love everything about it. So the next step for this is I'm gonna put it in the wash and wash it and see what happens. So I definitely wanted to show it on here first in case it gets ruined. I don't think it's going to, but you know, we can never be too sure of these things in the knitting world. I've definitely ruined a handful of things by putting them in the wash. So I wanted to show this here first. And this one, because it's my first one, I just love it. It has a lot of mistakes. This stitch is difficult to fix. If you make a mistake in fisherman's rib, it is a mistake. And it's not until probably the second half of the blanket, so about 3-4 years in, that I realized I just have to unravel and go back and fix it, because there was no way I could figure out how to like rearrange the stitches to fix it if I dropped a stitch or if I did something wrong. I can't even think of what I would do wrong, but there were times when you make mistakes and you'd have to go back and fix it, and you can see the mistakes, but not that much. This is a very forgiving fabric and it's so squishy and lovely. I recommend this pattern 100%. And actually, this is the second time I've done it. A while ago, we had some neighbors that were adopting a baby, and I did make a baby blanket with this pattern using just some like acrylic yarn. And I made it smaller. And for that one, applying the I-cord was super easy because it was a much smaller blanket. But this was a commitment to add these I-cord edges. And I know when I do it the second time and I apply as I go, the I-cord will be just as colorful as the rest of the blanket. And I think I'm okay with that. In fact, I know I am. So, and I just had folded this and now I messed it up again. But yeah, so it's done. And I'm really, really happy with it and proud of it. And I'm gonna miss working on it. But as you'll see, I've been enjoying another blanket that I've pulled out recently. Okay, let's get into works in progress. That was a lot of finished objects for today. I don't drink anything interesting. It's always just English breakfast tea. Twinings English breakfast tea. And lately I've been putting collagen peptides in my second mug. I don't know if it's helping anything, but I'm trying. Okay, my first whip that I'll show is my Alder Grove sweater. This is a pattern by Samantha Guerin. I am making the size 4, and I started this on Valentine's Day on February 14th of this year. So this is a pattern where you use slub yarn and cotton fluff, and you basically stripe it. So it is what would we call this? I'm not sure what this construction is called, where you start with the back and you do the back shoulders and then put those, I can't even remember. I don't think, it's not raglan and it's not quite round yoke, but is it drop shoulder? I don't know. So maybe I do know and I'm just blanking, but yeah, so you start the back first with the slub, and then you add some of the cotton fluff, and then you pick up and you knit the front panel, and then you connect it under the arms. And so then you'll just pick up stitches when you're ready to add your arms. So it's coming along great. The color is called Pengilly, I think. And yeah, I really love it. It's like a green and blue. It's definitely, I mean, we all know now that I have a palette and I'm not ashamed of it. I will always lean into green. So this is fingering weight yarn. So here's my hair. This is the cotton fluff, and this is the slub. I love this color. I really was drawn to making this because of the different textures. The cotton fluff is so soft, and I honestly will say I don't love knitting with either of these yarns. So the fingering and the slub is slub, which has its ups and downs. And even the cotton fluff is a little bit difficult to manage. I feel like my needles get caught a lot. However, I am really loving it. There's one place, let me see if I can find it, where it looks like there's a hole, but it's just because I didn't quite pull the slub tight enough. So I don't know, if it keeps bothering me, I may just have to go in with a little bit of yarn and close it up. But overall, this is coming along. I mean, we're getting there. And I believe in the pattern, I should show you the pattern photo so you can get a better sense of what it looks like as a finished object. So it's it's like a bracelet length sleeve, and then the bottom hem and the collar, I think, are both done in that cotton fluff, which I think will be a much nicer feeling than the slub yarn around my neck for sure. So I'm looking forward to this. I think it's fun, and I hope the only concern I have is running out of yarn, because I think when I bought the kit for a size 3, but I've learned a little bit about swatching and sizing since then, and I decided to make a size 4, so it should be fine. But it's coming along, and I think the last time I wasn't connected under the sleeves even. So yeah, I've made some progress. This one is a slow progress one for me. I enjoy working on it, but it's also one of those things where, because there's a certain amount of inches for each of the stripes in the different yarns, and sometimes it's like I'm knitting and knitting and knitting, and I'm like, I've got to have it, right? I've got to be there. And it's like, no, you still have like 2.5 inches to go. So it just feels slow going because I don't make a lot of figurine weight sweaters. Okay. The next work in progress. Okay, guys. The Douglas cardigan. All right. Where are we at? I have finished, since we spoke last time, I finished one sleeve and cuff, and I've started, because I needed to, the button band. So let's start with the sweater itself. So this is a bottom-up sweater by Andrea Mowry. I started this on January 2nd, so it's my first sweater cast on for the year. I am using Too Cool Wool, which is the called for yarn for the pattern, and I'm making size 3. And so I washed and blacked the body, which is nice and soft. And then a couple of you said, and below my last video, that looking at the pattern schematic, I was holding the shoulders like up to my shoulder, and they're like, it doesn't start until like here, and you're totally right. So I'm not worried about the armholes being too tight anymore. They're fine. This is gonna be bad putting a sweater on over a sweater, but yeah, oh yeah, does not fit over another sweater well. But yeah, everything is fine for width and everything. I hated knitting these sleeves, and I hated picking up. I don't know if I did a great job. And yeah, I'm just feeling very ambivalent about the sweater right now. I also did not do any decreases, so I did a pretty dramatic decrease at the bottom. And I'm thinking about ripping this cuff out and only doing half of the decreases, just to make this cuff a little bit more relaxed fitting. So it's more, I don't know, it looks kind of funny to me. I'm really hopeful that once I finish it, I like it. I've fallen completely out of love with it though. I don't enjoy working with this yarn, and I really wanted to try this yarn, and I think this will be the only project I make with this yarn. I don't think I would go back to it. You know how sometimes if you have like a couple uneven stitches, blocking will really be forgiving and like help pull those stitches together? I didn't feel that blocking helped these stitches at all. So now I just feel like, oh, if I have sloppy stitches, it's gonna be a sloppy looking sweater. That's just how I'm feeling. So I did switch my focus to the button band, just because it's something different. So there's 5 buttonholes, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. So I did all the buttonholes, and now it's just this ribbing pattern for the whole length of the body. So last time I mentioned that I was not looking forward to adding the button band, and it's because then you have to sew it on. And I'm showing this very oddly. I should just show it like this. So you basically knit it the whole length of the sweater and then sew it on. But I really want to get this button band on to kind of show me what kind of width we're working with when the sweater comes together. I mentioned this is this sweater I did not gauge swatch for. I could definitely take a gauge swatch now and see where we're at, but it wouldn't help anything. This is all my own fault. All the reasons I'm not enjoying it are my own fault. And yeah, I really want to finish this, and I may change my tune once the button band collar is on and both sleeves are on, and maybe I'll love it. Right now, I'm just not loving it. And then it has, it's gonna have pockets too. So there are a lot of things that could still make me love this sweater, but I'm just not loving the process of knitting it. But one sleeve is done, button band is started, and then I think I'm gonna attach the button band and do the second sleeve, figure out what I wanna do with cuffs, if I wanna undo. I'll probably, when I do the second sleeve, decide at that point if I wanna do a different cuff, and then I'll redo that first cuff and then add the pockets. So it's gonna get done, guys. It's gonna become a priority. No, because as much as I want to finish it and get it off my plate, I also don't want to force myself to finish it. So it's still in the rotation. It's still happening. And I still have hope that I'm going to finish it and put it on and be like, yes, trust the process. But this process isn't fun, and I'm a process knitter. So anyway, okay, next I have, sorry, this one's doesn't have a project bag, the Manhattan hat. I casted this hat on. This is a new cast on. This is a hat patterned by Tori Yu. And this is also using leftover La Bien Aimée Corey worsted. The color's Kitsune, and this was also from my stratified sweater. I had a whole skein of this left over. So this is really exciting. It's 1x1 ribbing. I'm a little disappointed in myself because this would have been a great pattern to try tubular cast on. It's even in the pattern, and I didn't do it. And I should have, because there's no reason for me not to have, but I'm not gonna pull it out and redo it at this point. So this is all we have right now. I started this on March 5th, and I have to admit, I'm a little tired of 1x1 rib. And this is on a smaller needle, but you can, I don't know if you can tell, it still looks like there's a lot of space between the stitches. The Manhattan hat, sorry, I meant to have this set to show you. The Manhattan hat on the pattern on Ravelry. And you can see it's got like that really kind of squared off top. I'm making this long enough to fold the brim, and we'll see. I mean, oh, that didn't show what I wanted to show. See, like this looks super cute on her. I'm not sure if I'm that person. So I may make it a little bit shorter and not have that top foofy look, but I also might try it. I'm not sure. But so this might sneak in my bag on my trip just because it's 1x1 ribbing and might be relaxing. So we'll see. Okay, next I have, okay guys, my Scraptastic Stash Busting Blanket. This is a pattern by Samantha Johnston. I started this on June 14th of 2021, and I was working on it pretty regularly. And then I started this using magic knot balls, which if you don't know what a magic knot ball is, it's a certain way that you can tie knots, tie two ends of yarn together and make knots, and they generally are really strong and don't really break. So I have two balls like this that I'm pulling from to marl it together. But one of my magic knots did come apart. And so I had to go back and re-knot those yarns together. And that took some time. So, okay, this is the front. So I, where this angry uterus stitch marker is, there she is, she's mad, is where I ripped out to and re-knot the ball, and then I knit all of this. So I love this blanket. So this is how much I have. And this one does have a built-in I-cord edge, which is why I'm thinking this will be great for my next bits and bobs. It's so stretchy and squishy. Oh my gosh, I love it. So the yarns so far that are in this are two. One is a mini skein set from Ruby and Roses that I got a long time ago. And the other one is, I think, two mini skein sets from Yarn Cafe Creations. And the bases are just so incredibly good. And because I put these magic knot balls together so long ago, I have no idea what colors are coming, and that's been really, really fun. And I really wanted to get to this section because you can see it's like blue and maroon held together, and it's just so good and so many colors and so pretty, and it just makes me so happy. This is what I want to work on all the time. So I'm trying to come up with like a schedule for working on this, because I could work on this all the time. I love it that much. So I do have some more yarn, and I've shown this before. So, but I have, this is what I'm gonna put together next in terms of magic knot balls. So the bottom yarn is from a Holly Press Fibers Narnia Advent that I got a few years ago. And then the ones that are already in balls, these are from Lantern Light yarn. It was a Halloween Advent I got one year. And so I feel like these are gonna kind of work okay together. The Lantern Light minis definitely have a lot more like variegation, although some of the Holly Press Fibers do too. But I feel like when I look at this bag, I think this is gonna work. It's gonna work, and it's gonna work with what I already have going. So I'm really excited about this. And then we'll see where I'm at after I do all of these minis and see if I want to start adding scraps or what. I don't think I would buy more minis just because I have so many scraps around my house, but sorry about all the like plastic bag stuff. But this is definitely my favorite project that I'm working on right now, for sure. Okay, my next work in progress is another new cast on. This is the Italian Autumn Cowl by the Italian Knitter, and she just had a new pattern come out. So far she's got, I think, an Italian named pattern for each season, and they're all free, I believe. They all kind of have the same type of theme, like eyelets. So I started this on March 8th, and the yarn is yarn that I dyed. They were supposed to be the same, and they're definitely not. So one is very pink, one is very purple, and with like blacks in there. I don't even know how I achieved this at all. I don't really dye yarn very much anymore. Actually, I haven't for over a year. And I think I have some bare yarn that I'll either use for bare yarn in projects like blankets or something, or that I would definitely dye myself a sweater quantity of yarn or something. But yeah, I don't really do it very often. It's not that enjoyable to me. So here's where I'm at. So this is a long cowl that will like go, I don't even know, do I have a picture? So this is the desired effect. And I'm not sure if I have enough yarn to make it as long as hers is. We will see. I think I will just knit this till it's as long as it is. I did have this yarn knit up in something else, so the first like part of it is a little crunchier looking, and then it gets into like nice, beautiful yarn. So that's where we're at. And it'll stretch too when it blocks quite a bit. I believe this is 100% merino wool. So it'll be nice. I don't know. And if it feels way too short, I can just grab some more yarn and in like a gray or something and do a second half. And I think that would be fine as well. But I just really wanted to use this yarn. I really wanted to find a project that maybe could become a gift knit. Because I have several skeins of yarn that I've dyed that, you know, maybe members of my family would like something out of. So I wanted to play around with this. So yeah, that's a new cast on. And this is really an easy one for when I'm in meetings at work. My camera's on top of my monitor, so I'm like a floating head when I'm on Zoom, which is fine, but it gives me space to like knit while I'm in Zoom meetings, which is so good for me because if I'm not knitting, I'm like starting to pick at my fingernails and like, I'm a fidgeter and, you know, why pick up a fidget ring or something when I could just knit? So that's what I do. Okay, I have another new cast on. It is the Bookshop Cal. No, the Bookshop, what is it called? It's just called the Bookshop. So it is a shawl. And this is a pattern by Casey Herleahy. I'm not very far. I showed this last time, the pattern, because I wanted to cast this on for my Cozy Winter Reads and Make Along. I guess I don't have a great picture of it. I thought I did, so I'll show you. There's a 1 or 2 skein version of this. I'm making the 1 skein version. The yarn I'm using is from the Little Foxes. It is called the Goblin King. And if I didn't say, I started this on March 8th. So that's the tag for the yarn. I'm not very far. I really just wanted to cast on. So there it is. I'm enjoying this. It has a really interesting cast on that I'd never done before. And it was not difficult. And yeah, I'm liking how this yarn is knitting up. It is so soft. Again, it's super duper soft. And this is just, I'm just making this one for fun. I started it as part of my make along, but it's just gonna be a little like neck scarf when it's done. So I don't have any like deadlines. Would I like to finish it in time for my make along? Of course, but I won't. I'm very realistic. Okay, and then I have one last new cast on. And because I needed another sweater casted on, I did. I cast on the Big Rib sweater by Jessie Made Designs. If you've been here for a while, I had casted this on and knit the whole body and one sleeve in a yarn that did not work for this pattern at all. It just was not a good fit. All right, hang on. Please hold. So here is, oh, that ring light. I'm gonna have to get used to the Big Rib sweater by Jessie Made Designs. I tried this before and the yarn was just terrible. It didn't work. So this is one of the yarns that Jessie Made suggests as an alternative yarn in her pattern. So I'm using this Wonder Fluff yarn by Knit Picks and the color Beehive Heather. And I like it. I do like it. I did a gauge swatch. I should show you that because I'm a gauge swatcher now. That's never gonna get old for me to say. So I did a gauge swatch and I didn't have enough stitches for the gauge. So I went up a needle size. So I think this pattern calls for a size 10. I went up to a 10.5. So yeah, I think this is gonna be, oh, it feels really good. It feels really good. This is it washed too. And it feels a lot more sturdy washed. I forgot about that. Because right now it just feels like something that's gonna pill and I'm not sure about it. I can honestly say, and I have a lot of this yarn, so I hope that I like it. But I wanted to start this to bring on my trip with me because, you know, I'm gonna have about 14 hours in the car and a lot of relaxation time. So I thought, why not have a sweater? And I knew from knitting this before that it goes fast. So I did this in a day. I started this on March 20th and today is March 22nd. So this is basically 1.5 days of knitting. So for this pattern, you start in the back. It's kind of the same as the Alder Grove, but different. You start in the back and then you add these kind of shoulder neck panels here, and then you connect the front. And then I just connected for under the arms and now I just go around and around and around until I finish the body. So it's gonna fit. It just squishes in, it's ribbing, so it squishes in, but it'll stretch out quite a bit. I don't have stitch stoppers on this. One thing I'm noticing, because I've been working on a lot of ribbing, is I feel like my ribbing is extremely messy. And I remember hearing, I think it was Amanda from Birch and Lily. Is that correct? She's a weekly podcaster. She's lovely and she's a really great sweater knitter. But she's also said that the inside of her ribbing, like the wrong side, always looks neater. So when she does like cuffs and collars, she flips her work so that the wrong side shows. And I'm feeling that after doing the on the C train. You know, I feel like you can see that my stitches aren't always even, but then the inside looks a lot better. And I actually maybe could wear this opposite, possibly. I'll have to look at where my ends are. But I'm starting to feel that, and I never really noticed it before, but doing this sweater has really made me see how uneven my ribbing can sometimes look. And I think it's gonna block to a point where it looks okay. But anyway, I knew I was gonna enjoy this pattern because I've already knit it basically once before, and it's pretty relaxing, and I just thought maybe I could knock out a sweater while we go on our trip. I did have one hiccup. For these increases, I didn't read the instructions and I felt like I knew what I was doing, and I ended up having big gaping holes, so I just took a strand of yarn and kind of closed those up. So now that doesn't look quite as neat, but that's on the back shoulder and I think I can live with that. But I hope I like this. I hope I like the yarn choice. I know I'm gonna like the yellow. I feel like I can wear yellow, so we'll see. That might change. I might put it on and be like, oh God, this is not gonna work for you, but we're gonna try. We're gonna try for sure. So yeah, that's coming on my trip with me. So now I'm gonna transition to what's coming on my trip with me. Because one thing you may notice that you didn't see today was my Bennett sister shawl, which I'm also making for the Cozy Reads and Make Along? Cozy Reads and Make Along Mal right now. And you'll notice it looks a little bit smaller. I had to rip back. I read the instructions wrong and I read the instructions wrong. So I had to go back and redo almost all of section 2. So that's what I'm doing. But I thought this would be great for car knitting. So if you're new, it is the Bennett Sister Shawl by Lindsay Fowler. Easy pattern. I just can't read directions sometimes. So, here, this is a better picture. Yeah, so that's gonna be car knitting for me. I thought that would be pretty easy for in the car. I'm also going to bring my Slow Burn socks by Nancy Wheeler, Knit Sip Happy. I have one sock done and I have cast on for the second sock. So I thought this would be great vacation knitting as well. This is Nomadic Yarns Slow Burn on her yak sock base. And I love everything about these. I still haven't decided if these are for Claire or me, but today, this morning, she looked at something and she was like, oh, I really like that. And I was like, I can make socks for you out of that. And she's like, I don't wear them. I said, okay, no more socks for you. So Claire's my 15, almost 16-year-old daughter. And I love her, but she's not a fan of my knitting. Like, she loves that I do it, but she doesn't want any of it. So fine by me. And then what else? And then I'm gonna bring the big rib. Might bring the Manhattan hat. I may just throw another skein of sock yarn in just in case I finish the Slow Burn socks. I mean, there's no way I'm gonna finish all these things, but you know, whatever. Okay, so then my next socks that I would like to finish. I've mentioned I have a lot of sock whips. So Obviously, Smoke Gets in Your Eyes is my priority sock right now. I would like to finish that one for my make along, as well as just to have that one done. And then these are all the other socks that I'm going to be working on. I'm trying really hard not to cast on more socks, but I'm collecting my needles, and the needles are like, we want yarn, we want to make something. So I might have to listen to them, we'll see. So these are my Mercury socks, and I put these away. Oh, they're really bright and blowing out a lot. But these will be, I think, great to work on this spring and to have these done. This is an awesome lace pattern, and all the information is in my Ravelry. And I do have my Ravelry project set up in a way that, like, everything I have cast on or will be casting on soon is on top, and then I just put smiley faces on all my FOs so that they stay in order. So if there's anything that I showed today, you should not have to go very far down in my Ravelry projects to find it. So that I want to work on. I have these amazing Freddie Beach socks started from Nancy Wheeler, and this is probably like one of my favorite socks. And I just stopped working on it. I mean, look at how gorgeous. Everything about these is beautiful. So I want to go back to these for sure. And then my fuzzy feet that I showed last time, I want to finish these. So these will be coming back. And this is short socks, so in theory, it shouldn't take very long. That is using Suburban Stitcher yarn, and I love it. And then this, I've never even shown this one on here. I started this probably 2 years ago. I should look. I took it to a movie theater once to try to like knit in a movie theater. I don't have that skill yet. I'm gonna keep working on it, but, and I ended up dropping all these stitches, but this is just a self-striping yarn from Coloring Book Yarns. I think it's called Night Owl. And I wanna make these for my mom, although, yeah, they're gonna be for my mom. But these I have a little walking pad treadmill, and I've been pulling these out when I walk. So, except not last night, because last night the World Figure Skating Championships were on. So I was just watching that and did not want to knit while I watched that. But a lot of times I'll just put on either The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, which I've started watching, or I haven't tried to read a book, but I'll listen to a book and then I'll knit on the treadmill, and I'm trying to do that. So if you guys see that these are growing, you'll know I'm walking on the treadmill a lot more because I'm trying really hard to just become a little bit more active. Okay, so those are next up for socks. My next sweater goals are to finish the Douglas Cardi, which we've gone back and forth on. I'm not sure how much I'm gonna push there. And I want to complete the color work for my Goldwing. Last time I saw you, I said, this is going to be my priority. I'm going to finish the color work, and I have not touched it. So that is going to be something when I come back from my trip that I'm going to be working on, because I'd like to at least finish the color work, and then it's smooth sailing, like finishing a body and then doing arms. And that one's going to be so fun. So I do want to finish that. And then I'm going to swatch and cast on a couple new sweaters, because that's what I do. I have 20 works in progress all the time, and then one day I'll have 3 sweater FOs. It just happens. That's just how I work. And it can be a little frustrating even for me sometimes, but I also know they'll either get done or they'll get frogged. And I do have a sweater I'm frogging. I think it's called the Eastbound sweater. I was making that out of black yarn, and it's a really pretty intricate short sleeve sweater pattern that I just thought, I want to make it, but I don't feel that black yarn is the right choice for that sweater. And so that's the second sweater I've tried with this black yarn. So I came up with a plan that I think I'm going to stick with. One of my favorite sweaters that I made that I wear all the time is a Felix sweater by Amy Christoffers, made out of acrylic yarn. If I want to wear a hand knit sweater, that one fits me like a sweatshirt. It's the one I go for all the time. So I thought, if I hold that black yarn with maybe some mohair that's maybe a dark purple or even a black mohair, I'm gonna swatch, I think, with both, and made another Felix, I think that would be a good solution for that yarn, because I do want to use it. I thought about making one of those scarf sweater wraps by Knititude, but then I thought, I don't think I'll enjoy that in black yarn. So I don't think I'm gonna do that, but it did cross my mind. Yeah, so I'm gonna come up with a plan for that black yarn because I wanna knit it and I want it out of my stash. Plus black is a super wearable color for me. And then I wanna swatch for Salty Air Tea. I want to make that heirloom sweat quilt cardigan. Have you guys seen that? Let me pull it up for you really quickly because it is amazing. This. I have so many sweater DK weight sweater scraps that I thought, you know what, let's make a square, see what we feel about it and go from there. Maybe I'm gonna make one of those. I also am very interested in, I've started really thinking about what sweaters, when I do wear sweaters, I'm drawn to. One of them, so I bought 2 commercial made sweaters this year. I know, boo, what am I thinking? One was because I bought a black sweater thinking I would never knit myself a black sweater, a black fingering weight sweater, which I wouldn't. I got it from, I wanna say American Eagle because I was shopping with Claire, my daughter, and I just kept looking at it thinking, I would never make that for myself. So maybe I'll get it. And then we ended up getting some rewards and I had money towards it. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna get it. And I got it and it fits lovely. It's oversized, I love it, but it has not held up at all. It is terrible quality. Luckily, I think I only paid $9 for it. So yeah, so anyway, then I started to think the only other sweater I bought this year is a Gap forest green sweater that is awesome. And what it reminds me of is a lot of the Ozetta Petite Knit and My Favorite Things patterns that I think I'm just gonna do it. So sweater number 23 from My Favorite Things, oh, I'm sorry, is one that's a possibility. But the one that I'm the most interested in, I think right now, is the Port Sweater by Ozetta. And I think this might be my next cast on for like a sweater, because that reminds me the most of the sweater that I want to wear the most from the Gap. So I've really had to examine what I'm knitting and what I'm wearing. And I have to marry those two things together. I've never been really attracted to knitting the basic, and basic's not the right word, the classic style sweaters as much. I mean, I've made a Lento, which I love and I actually wear quite a bit. And you know, I have made some of them. And I mean, something like this is beautiful, but like, you can't wear it every day. People are gonna be like, oh, you're wearing that lacy bobbly thing again. So I've just kind of had a sweater rehaul in my brain. So I think I'm gonna be switching to making some of those more classic looking sweaters, and I think those will be coming on the needle next. And to achieve that, I did buy some mohair from Knitting from Olive, and that is gonna be coming. I also bought 2 sweater quantities of yarn that I feel very guilty about, but I plan on knitting them both this year, so I'm gonna try not to feel guilty about it. And you'll see the yarn when I bring it up. I'll be very honest that if I'm using new yarn, I will definitely tell you. Yeah, and it wasn't Knit Picks, it was the pricey stuff. But let's just say I've had a lot of stress lately. Yarn, beauty products apparently are how I deal with stress. So I will be honest when it comes in, but I'm not gonna like show it right now. I've never really been a haul shower. But yeah, I did buy some yarn. Apparently March was the month that my dreams of having a no-buy year fell apart. But anyway. And then I also wanna make a couple shirts this summer, so we're gonna play around with that. I have a lot of Pearl Soho linen quill. I bought enough to make the daily pullover, and then I bought enough to make the half and half triangle wrap, but I don't think I'm gonna make that anymore. So I think I'm gonna use that yarn to make some t-shirts this year and see what I feel about that for garments. All right, and then finally, before we go into book club, my lovely friend Anna, who is Zebra Yarns, I talked in my last episode about how I didn't really like knitting from sock tubes because I feel like they're always cranked loose. And then she reached out to me on Instagram and she was like, you can crank them tighter. I have a machine and, you know, you can get a tighter gauge. And she so kindly and sweetly said, can I send you a couple tightly cranked tubes for you to play around with and see if you like that better? And I was like, yeah, that'd be so nice. Thank you. So Anna sent me, and I did ask her because she has dyed yarn. I said, did you dye these? And she dyed 2 of the 3 of them. So she sent me this tube, which I can already tell this is closer to my gauge than some of the other places I've had crank sock, but look how pretty it is too. And the gauge is so, it looks like my gauge, which is really exciting. And then she did this one, which I can already see these from Milo. I just love it. So I'm gonna play around with adding heels, toes, and cuffs to these, and yeah, like I can feel the difference. And I should have brought one of my other ones out to show you. And then she also sent this one, which is really interesting because I think she did this to show me. If not, it was a great lesson anyway, but like she started like on a bigger gauge and then really brought it in. And so you can see how that changes, like, ooh, that there's a drop stitch, but how that changes the like fabric. And then down here, it's so much thicker. I don't know. So this was an experiment and I'm really excited to play around with these. And just, Anna, thank you so much. That was really, really kind and generous and of your time and your resources. And I should have sent you some of my own yarn to crank for me, but that was just really kind. So thanks, Anna. And I'll show these once they have been born into socks. All right. So I think that's it for the knitting content. So if you are only here for that, thanks for showing up. It was a long, I always try to go shorter, but I'm unable to apparently. And I had a ton to show you guys today. I really just felt like I have to get this out before we go on our trip because I already have so much to talk about. So thank you. And I hope to see you next time. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment. I love to hear from you all and let me know what you're working on. I love seeing what you work on. That's one of my main reasons for doing all these make-alongs is because I love getting to share with all of you, and I love seeing what you share as well. So I did not say that well, but you know, you get the intention behind it, I hope. Okay, book club. I have read some good books lately, you guys, and some interesting ones. So I finished Under One Roof. This was a novella by Ali Hazelwood. I generally really like Ali Hazelwood, and I had been avoiding these novellas, and then one day I just was like, okay, I'll give it a try. And it was okay. It was okay. I would say stick with The Love Hypothesis or one of her like other novels if you want to try her out. These novellas are a little flat, but not bad. And then I finished Beneath the Scarlet Sky by Mark T. Sullivan. This is a World War II kind of biography. It was really good. The character's name is completely escaping me, but it takes place in Italy. So it's an Italian young man who basically is a spy for the Nazis in occupied Italy. He ends up, you know, in the presence of Mussolini, and yeah, it was really interesting, really heartbreaking. I felt I was super in it, and then the last bit, when they try to like finish things off, and it kind of lost me a bit at the very end, but it was very interesting, very well done. And yeah, I can't imagine living in a time like that, although sometimes it feels like we're getting closer and closer to that in the world we live in now, but it was very good. I gave that 4 stars, I believe. And then I read The Lost Bookshop by Evie Woods. This was so charming. I gave it 5 stars. I just really appreciated it. It was kind of magical, kind of not, and it had a couple different storylines going, but I loved it. I thought it was a very, very charming book, well written and worth a read. So pick it up if you're in the mood for something that's just a little magical and a little charming. And then I read The Vampire Knitting Club by Nancy Warren. I've never gotten so many comments on Instagram when I posted that I finished this. A lot of you were like, I love that series. And some people were like, is it any good? And I think my standard response is, it is exactly what it sounds like. It is fun. It takes place in Oxford, England. There's vampires, there's knitting, there's witches, there's a cozy mystery. It's a fast read. So this is free on Audible. So if you have an Audible membership and want to try it out, I would recommend it. I downloaded, I think, books 2, 3, and 4. And I am currently reading the second book right now. It's good enough to keep going for now. It reminds me a lot of those Janet Ivanovich books that was like 1 for the money, and then everything was like 2 for whatever, 3 for, it was like, it went in chronological order and had those titles. You know, where like the main character is a woman and she's a little bit of a mess, but not a total mess. And, you know, there's a handsome vampire, handsome policeman, cast of characters. It's fun. So I would not recommend it. I would definitely recommend giving it a try if you want. I enjoyed it. And then I finished Heartless Hunter by Kristen Ciarelli. I think I gave that 5 stars. This was like a good book. I started it and I got kind of bored at the beginning. So then I switched over to the Vampire Knitting Club. And when I came back to this, I could not put it down. It's enemies to lovers. There's witches again. Apparently I'm in a witch like phase. I don't know. I just really enjoyed it. It's nothing you've never read before if you like this genre, but it was done well and really well written. So I would recommend it for sure. Sorry, I've got to turn the page. What am I currently reading? Hang on. Okay, I am still currently reading I Have Some Questions for You by Rebecca Makkai. This is the book that will not end. I am getting closer, you guys, but I honestly have to say, I'm not loving the writing of this book. I do not like her writing style, and the storyline's fine. We are finally at a point where, you know, it's a woman probably around my age in her 40s that goes back to her boarding school where her roommate was murdered, and she's teaching a class about podcasts, and some kids started a podcast investigating the murder. And basically they find some evidence that possibly the person who's been in prison for the murder isn't the murderer. So now we're at like a retrial and it's getting interesting again. It just feels too long and the writing is so choppy, and it's really hard to focus on it sometimes because the writing, I'm like, what? I don't understand. So I don't know. I don't hate it, but it's not going to be like something I recommend. Then I'm reading Stitches and Witches by Nancy Warren, Vampire Knitting Club. And then I'm reading The Love That Split the World by Emily Henry. This is one of her very first novels, so I wanted to try this. It's only on Kindle, so I have a Kindle app on my iPad. And I thought I would read this while I was on the treadmill, but then I got sucked into The Marvelous Miss Maisel. So it's still gonna happen probably as treadmill reading. I just haven't really gotten there yet. So this one, again, you guys will see how much I'm on my treadmill by those socks and this book. And then I'm bringing this book, The Women by Kristen Hanna, with me on my trip. So we are going to the Ozarks. We are not on season, so we're not going to like a really warm vacation spot for spring break. We are just gonna go stay in a really beautiful Airbnb that's got a ton of space for our family, my sister-in-law's family, and my brother-in-law's family. So all of our nieces and nephews on this side of the family are all going, which is the reason we really wanted to do this, because our oldest nephew is turning 19 and he's already in college. And then our youngest nephew just turned 1. So there's not very many years where all of them are gonna wanna do things together. So we're just going and we're hoping to do some hiking, and there's some caves there, and spend some time outside if we can, and just have a really relaxing time. So I think I will have a lot of time to knit. which is why I'm gonna bring a lot of projects. So that's all I have for you today. I will be back in the beginning of April and we'll pull prizes at that point in time and I'll announce them on this channel. And yeah, thanks for watching. Thanks for knitting along with me and let me know what you're working on and what you're reading. I always want to hear. So take care and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.